Hello, everyone. It's Nick from the podcast. So today we have an episode that my good friend River is going to be on, and we wanted to give a little preface to the episode. So I'll let River talk about that.
Yeah. What's up, guys? I'm River. Today we're going to talk about why it's important to follow Jesus. And in this podcast, we're ultimately going to answer it as in Jesus gives us hope greater than anything else. And in the podcast today that you're going to listen to, you're going to hear us talk about things like murder and rape and sin and all and porn, all things that are like big things. And during the podcast, you're going to hear us talk about them like maybe they're not a big deal, but we don't want you to hear that. What we actually want you to hear is those are real things that happen in our lives, around us, to us. Maybe we're struggling with something. And I don't want to diminish that or make it less of it. It's actually a huge deal. And if that's something that's happened to you or you're struggling with something, we care about you and we love you. The thing we want you to take away is Jesus is over it. And if those are things that you're like, what the heck, River and Nick and Braden, like, you can't say that about me. Like, we're sorry if it's something that's painful for you. We love you. But I really hope that you take away that Jesus is in control and he can handle the things that have happened around you, to you, to people in your life. And we love you so much. And we really just hope that you enjoy this podcast and that you just get to be one step closer to God because of it. We love you guys. I hope you enjoy it.
Welcome back to Finding Focus Talks. Today we're talking about why is it important to follow Jesus. Today we got Braden Dunlap, myself, Nick Wiersbicky, and River. Welcome on, River. We're very blessed to have you today. We're really excited. So River, with this topic, I kind of just want to hand it over to you and walk us through why you think it's important to follow Jesus.
All right, this is kind of very open-ended question. Why is it important to follow Jesus? And I was sitting down today and I was thinking about the reality that if you're not, everyone on the planet of the earth is following something. Everyone has a deep desire to be identified as someone, to belong to something, to have purpose in their life. And I was thinking through this, those internal and external desires, like we see the internal thoughts play out in your life. And one of my mentors, Dr. Jeff Brown, he has this thing called Think, Feel, Do. The thoughts you fire off millions of thoughts a day. Your brain is crazy, but I don't know all the super cool doctor lingo to describe your neurological pathways and all that, but your brain is firing off thoughts all the time. And those thoughts trigger emotions, and your emotions are typically what you act out of. So for me, it's thinking through my old life and how I've grown up. I was just following anything, clinging to anything to find some sense of purpose and belonging, some sense of like, this is what I can give my life to identify myself. And a lot of that was my family. A lot of that would have been sports, the things that were popular for my friends. And I was thinking about this. People look out at the world and they see people who are broken, people who ended up like people who are almost thinking about this. Do you think that person just ended up there? Like one day and they just woke up one day and they're like, now I'm homeless. Like, no, there's lots of things that happened, whether it was mental, financial, emotional, they got kicked out of their home. There's things going on in their life. There's choices that were made that lead to everyone ending up where they are. And the choices you make alter where you go. And now I want to redirect this and tie it back to Jesus, right? So it's important to follow Jesus. I'm going to just go through my list because we are people who are living life in a linear direction. We will make choices in our lives. Those choices affect ourselves and others. Who we are is determined by what we do. If you think about that, if you're outside of Jesus, who you are is determined by what you do. So why do we do what we do? We thought we were doing the right thing, the normal thing, because it felt right. You're just fitting in, or this is what everyone else is doing. But the reality is, you don't know what you're doing. You don't know the thing that you're doing is right all the time, and neither does everyone else. Everyone's just trying to figure this life thing out, and we're looking to each other. We're looking to the trend. We're looking to anything to anchor ourselves in. So as we go through life, naturally we pick up pain, we pick up anger, worry, stress, grief, etc. All of those emotions, because of things we're thinking about, and the things that like happen to us around us, we pick up those emotions, and those emotions lead to us living a certain way, and those can start to define us. And there's this famous quote, it's called hurt people, right? And if you think about that, plug in any of those emotions. Angry people enrage others, worried people add stress to others, grieving people, we're just trying to cope as humans. And there's a verse in the Bible, it's Matthew 11:28-30. It's, "Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and lowly in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light." So Jesus is describing himself as a gentle person, right? He's a gentle, lowly, compassionate, humble person. And he's inviting all of us to come to him. And he's saying, I can take this off of you, right? I can give you what you need. And you don't have to cope in unhealthy ways, because the ways that we typically cope lead to unhealthy choices, which can lead us literally anywhere we don't want to be. No one who is in a rough place thought they were going to be there when they woke up, whether it's a pedophile. Like, you don't just like set out on your life and you're like, I'm going to be a pedophile when I grow up. You don't just set out and you're like, I'm going to be homeless when I grow up. When I grow up, I'm going to be a rapist. When I grow up, I'm going to murder people. Like, no one goes out trying to, typically, no one tries to go out and do those things. And if you let Jesus get a hold of your heart, and if you invite him into your life and make him Lord of your life, you can find fruit, you can find fulfillment in life, fullness of life. That's what I mean. And that's where living where I am, like in my own person, I know what is best for me. That's not going to be me knowing what's best for me is a lie. I think I know what's best for me, but that's a lie placed in me by the devil. And this is where Jesus comes in. He says this, I am the way, the truth, the life. No one can come to the Father except through me. That's a very like, reconcile that, dude. Like, if you think you're in control of your life, I am the way, the truth, and the life. Okay, if Jesus is the only way, the only truth, the only way to have real life, it means he's either crazy, he's a liar, or he's lying to me, he's a crazy person, or he's actually the real deal. And we need to like reconcile that, because we all are following something. I want us to like take a moment and like dive in deep personally and figure out what that is. If it's not Jesus, it is not the way. It's not true. It's not right. It's not helpful, and it's leading you down a place where you don't want to go. So for me, thinking through this stuff, it's important to me because Jesus says, if you abide in me, I will abide in you, and you will produce fruit from that. And I want to have a good life where I produce fruit and I actually, change the world. I want to be a part of this change, because Jesus, he started changing the world 2,000 years ago. Yeah. Like, he walked around as a real dude, like real God and real human. And like, the world's never been the same since. And he invites us to do that with him. So there's a reason for why that's happening. And I think what we want to talk about today is like, what is it? Why should we do it? What's our role in it? Those are the questions I'm asking to get our gears rolling. So yeah, if you guys want to respond to that, like what are you thinking? What stands out to you guys?
For me, what stood out was one of the last things you said about when Jesus was the way, the truth, and the life. How you said that he was either
a liar.
People think, he's either insane, crazy, evil. Yeah. Then, because I read something the other day from, I believe it was C.S. Lewis.
Yep.
How he was talking about how Jesus, when he was risen or whatever, or preaching and everything, he was either insane, crazy, or he was actually the Son of God. Mm-hmm. And he goes on to say that, also people thought of him as, when he was on earth, that he was one of the most humble, selfless, one of the best, lips per se to ever touch the earth. And he's saying somebody like that cannot be insane or evil.
Right. But he's not just a morally good teacher,
exactly.
Though. It's like he is God in the flesh. Mm-hmm. And because that's what we have to think through, is who is Jesus? We're asking, if you're following anything, you're trying to evaluate, if like you're gonna invest in a brand, like you're gonna go all in. If I'm gonna buy a pair of boots, like for like hiking, typically what I would do is investigate like the best boot brands, like LLB and Columbia, Patagonia, and like just at like Kirkland, all the other like Keens, whatever. I can't believe I know this many boots. Anyways, I'm actually shocked by that. Or a jacket. I did this with my winter coat. Like I investigate, I compare, but when you like look at a person to follow, Jesus is the only one who's like, it's me or no one else. And if it is me, everything in your life changes, which is like, okay, because I like being in charge of my life. Oh, sorry, I totally derailed you. My bad, Braden.
No, you're good.
Yeah.
I think for me, when you're talking River, it was the whole, like, we always talk about you're always following something, right? Your heart is chasing after something. And I feel like in our lives, it's very easy to assess. Like if you take that step back and like stop all the madness, stop all the crazy, because we're all moving at 1,000,000 miles an hour, and take that step back and you're like, okay, what am I actually following here? Because I know a lot of people, including myself, many times in my life, and a lot of Christians out there will say that they're following Jesus. And when you take that step back, maybe at that point in their life, they're following something else, and Jesus is just a part of it. And I know I've been doing that, right? And that pains me and hurts me. And then it's assessing, okay, here's where I'm at. How do I redirect that and change that? And what's the best way to find how to redirect and change that? It's through the Bible, reading the scriptures, right? Reading what Jesus says to do to follow him, right? And he's pretty clear. He's like you said, he's like, dude, you gotta drop everything. Like this is like something.
Yeah, dude. And what's really cool? Like the things that people follow, it's like, there's Tim Keller. All right, Tim Keller. All right, guys, go listen. There's a Tim Keller podcast. Listen to this one, Without Apology, and the Tim Keller podcast. All right, those are the big three. And yeah, I got a lot of podcasts for you. There's a couple of them, but Tim Keller podcast, and read any of Tim Keller's books because he's amazing. He just died recently of cancer, but he has this book. It's called this is gonna kill me. Basically, it's about idols. And it's like how like it talks about sex. It talks about it's like sex, money, something else. God, this is gonna kill me. Goodness.
Be like pride. You can go.
Yeah, pride. Oh yeah, it talks about the things that like totally separate you from God. Man, I'm gonna forget this title, but go look it up. Counterfeit Gods. Bah! All right, there it is. Nailed it. Go look up Counterfeit Gods, read it, listen to it, whatever you gotta do. It's a great book. But like people, they'll put like things that are actually good. Like I think a lot of Christians are like, sex is bad. And I'm like, no, sex is a gift from God, But like we have taken the gift of sex and monopolized it into pornography now. And I'm like, what happened there? Like, and other stuff, money it's a good thing. Like Jesus is like, yeah, like give your money to the government, tithe your money, give like the first fruits of the things you do away, give it to God, like serve others with your money, right? It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's a helpful thing, but it is not the thing, There's a appropriate way of having like things of the world in your life, but also making Jesus king of your life. That's like, because that's the place he earned it. Like he deserves it. Even if Jesus didn't die for your sins, he still is deserving that place at the top seat. But because he did for sure die for your sins and like changed history, like through that singular moment, like he is king, not just of your life, but overall. Colossians would describe Jesus like the one over everything, the firstborn of all creation. Like he's it. He's him, dude. Anyways, Jesus is sick. But he deserves to be at the top of your life. And Jesus and these other things in your life can coexist in your life as long as everything is beneath, like your family. Again, I talked about that. Huge idol of my life, huge temptation for me to like just be focused on my family, my work, the things I just mentioned, like sex, money, pride, all of those things, like they have their place, but Jesus, he is on top of it, which means he redefines the way I view these things. He gives me a new set of lenses to look at them through. So that's a tricky thing because like we do live in the world, We live in a real world without like Jesus being like right here with us to talk to us through all this stuff. But we need to figure out, how do we follow Jesus despite the distractions, because we are being discipled by the world if we're not being discipled by Jesus, right?
That was really good. That really stuck out to me. Being discipled by the world and not by Jesus is like, that's so true, because when you get away from your word, like I was reading in Crazy Love last night, my friend's Chin, amazing book.
Good book.
He was talking about when you stop following Jesus, when you stop doing your everyday practices, when you are not following him every day, it's like swimming upstream or on an escalator. You're going like you're going up, and so you have to walk up, you have to swim upstream, and so every day you have to do something, and if you stop, then you're falling back because the world is pulling you back, right? And that was really revealing to me, because I'm like, oh man, like that is happening 24/7, and I can see it in my own life and feel it in my own life, and I'm like, God, why is all this stuff like going wrong? Why do I not feel you anymore? Why are these issues happening, right? And it's really, okay, kid, you're not following me.
Yeah.
Dive deeper into me, and I'll dive deeper. You'll see the fruit that come of it, and that's very biblical too.
Right. That's John 15 right there. Abide in me, I in you, bro.
Cliff.
One of my brothers, I have 4 brothers, just so you know. Sky, he's a great soccer player. He went really far with it. And when I was in high school, he's like, River, here's the deal. You get out what you put in. Whatever you put into soccer, whatever you put into blah, 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 fill in the blank, you will see the fruit of that. So something that really is going to humble everyone who listens to this, and everyone in this room, and myself included, look at your screen time, and then like look at your time spent with God throughout a day or a week or a month or a year. And like, I have friends who are on their phone for 20 hours a day. How? Go to sleep. Eat some food, please. But like, think about that. Like, you wonder why your relationship with God feels so distant, why you don't feel like he hears you, why you don't feel like he's doing anything in your life. You feel like sometimes, like when you're praying, you're talking to a wall. When you're reading the Bible, like this book hasn't changed in 2,000 years. You know, like you're going through the motions. You're going to church. You're going to youth group. You're going to whatever you're doing, right? You're going through the motions, and the reason you may not feel like God is actually present or like Jesus is real in this moment, you look at your screen time, you look at your priority list, like write down the things that are distracting, occupying your brain space. Like write that stuff down and like compare it, like how much of this have you told God? How much of your time are you giving to him? I'm not trying to be all legalistic saying you got to read your Bible 30 hours a day, and like, it's like, no, but like if he's Lord of your life, if Jesus is king, he deserves, and he wants a real authentic relationship with you. Like, come to me all who are weary. Like, that's me. That's everyone here. Like, we're all tired, dude. Like, we're all trying our best and we're not doing good enough. We need Jesus to redefine us and redefine the way we live. The only way to have your life truly changed and redefined by Jesus is knowing who he is. And that means taking like real time, not like 1 minute. I mean, if all you've got is 1 minute, start with 1 minute. Yeah. But if it's like, give him like 15 minutes, 30, an hour a day where you get to like go on a walk and just think, pray, journal, listen to worship music, however you need to connect with God, like talking to friends about Jesus. Like this right here, this is an act of worship. Like reading is an act of worship, praying is an act of worship, singing songs to him, discussing him, writing about him, like writing to him, and surrendering and dedicating the time in your life to God is an act of worship, and it's a means of you having a relationship with him. So when people get like distraught or confused, they're like, wow, I don't feel like God is, he's not doing nothing. He doesn't even hear me. It's like it's brick wall up there, man. And I'm like, well, pause, like think about what has all gone on in your life. And like, fair, there are seasons of crazy stress. Like right now I'm getting married in like 25 days, crazy. And like I'm feeling it. We just came out of like a summer of camps and conferences and like nonstop like events going on every week and planning and just like school this summer. I'm in a master's degree program, so like I'm feeling it. And like I'm not gonna lie, like haven't had the best God time. Not gonna lie. And there's a reason for that. It's because life is busy, and that's like right where the evil one, the enemy, he wants you. He's like, if we can, you know the book Screw Tape Letters by C.S. Lewis? All right, read that one too. Basically, there's this uncle, his name's Screw Tape, and there's this nephew named Wormwood, and they're both trying to possess this dude, and they're like, dude, Wormwood talks to Screw Tape. He's like, Uncle Screw Tape, my guy that I'm trying to like possess, like he's like mess with, like keep him from knowing Jesus. He just decided to convert and follow Jesus. And then Uncle Screw Tape, he writes back. He's like, don't worry, this happens all the time. If we can control his life, the things that occupy his mind, we have him. He's like, if I can keep him busy, if I can keep him distracted, if I can keep him like focused on pornography, if I can keep this dude focused on like his other relationship, I can keep this guy focused on like his work and being good at that. If I can keep him focused on anything except following Jesus, we got him. And like that's what the enemy is trying to do, is keep us from Jesus by filling our life. So it's in those busy seasons where you got to really fight to follow Jesus, because he is trying to like capture your mind, capture your heart, capture your thoughts. And again, Romans 8 says nothing can separate you from the love of God. Like if you love God, there's nothing. If you are following him, if Jesus has you, Romans 8:1 says, therefore there is no condemnation for River and Nick and Braden who are in Christ Jesus. For those who are in Christ Jesus, there's no condemnation. Nothing can take you away from that. But there's a real war going on right now for your soul. So how do we defend against that? Paul writes about having the armor of God on. You know what? It's like it's like the helmet of salvation, the breastplate of righteousness, the belt of truth, the sandals with the readiness of I forget all of them off the top of my head, but it's like Ephesians 6. Yeah. He's like, there's a war going on. Here's how you defend it, and then he ends it and be prayerful. Like you've got it all. Like you got it on. Now pray. It's like, I'm like, all right, that's like what activates your armor. Like, you know, the Iron Man suit, if there's a button on the Iron Man suit that hits like go, like turn on like the suit, that's what prayer does for the armor of God. Like you got everything on, now pray and like fight the fight and follow God. And that's what's going on right there. Anyways, let me preach, man. Anyways, but yeah, so those are some things that you got to wrestle with when you're following Jesus, man.
Yeah. So going back to the topic of why should Jesus be important to you? My mind goes two ways. There's a logical and emotional way. I think we've kind of already talked about it.
Yeah.
But I kind of want to bring it back up because we talked about this at Momentum. If we go down the logical way, we kind of already talked about that. But you got to accept the reality that Jesus was a real person. Historically, the same way we prove anyone historically lived, we can prove that Jesus lived. So we have to accept that truth, and then you have to make a decision from there of, is he who he says he was? Is he who everyone else says he is, right?
Right.
So that's the logical approach. But even sometimes when you get the logical, it won't get to the heart. And I think the emotional way gets more to my heart, and to mostly everyone's heart. So River, I remember talking about desperation. That. So do you want to talk about what God does with us with desperation, despair, and kind of emotional way?
Yeah, dude. Okay. I'm gonna. Man, that's a big lofty thing right there. So, before we hop into like the emotions that go with Jesus and following Jesus and where he wants us to be emotionally in our life, I want to talk a little bit about the knowledge stuff. It is really important to logically, to historically, to like scientifically even like go and like seek to prove Jesus existed or disprove him. Good luck. Like go and like go look at the evidence. Like, there's like Pliny the Younger. There's, oh my goodness, Josephus. I'm trying to think of extra biblical writers who are describing the situations going on because of Jesus. And there's like 4 or 5 accounts that mention like Jesus or his followers by name. And going in, doing the research, and then seeing like the effects that Christianity, like first century Christianity, had on like the rest of like what's going on in like the Roman culture, like in that first like 100, 200 year, 80, something like that. Like, go and look at what's going on there. Like, I challenge you, like, form a concrete background of like what's going on. And then secondly, like, we're gonna hop into some of the emotion stuff. Like, there is this weird, you can know a lot about Jesus, but knowing him personally looks a little bit like this. It's going to talk about the problem of pain, like why is pain in the world? Why is evil why does bad stuff happen? One of the things that I've been really wrestling with is like God, he wants us to be desperate for him. Like, why are you struggling with your secret sin? Why? Literally, one of my buddies, like, I've just watched his life, like another thing and another thing and another thing happened to him, like just like parent stuff happening around him, like figuring out stuff with like what he wants to do with his life, like I'm like, your life is on fire, how are you alive? He's like, I'm just desperate for Jesus. He's like, I have literally no clue how I'm doing this. I don't know. Like, car broke down. Like, literally, like, every little thing just seemed to be going wrong. Like, I had like 20 minutes of that last night where like did okay on my final, the flooded the bathroom, all the things, like what, like it's like, what's going on, but like, no, but like, you have seasons of this stuff, and those seasons can be like a day, a week, a year, and it just seems like this is like the craziest year of like my buddy's life. I'm watching it take place, and he in this moment is like it's like, man, you're like not on like a pedestal. I'm not trying to raise you up, but like you're like doing the work that God has called you to do. It's being with Jesus despite the insanity of life. Despite like, I don't have control. That's okay. I'd really like it if I had some say. And I think going like in high school especially, like you feel that like you're like, I don't know where I'm going to college. I don't know who my friends are going to be next year. I don't know what I'm doing with do my friends even like me now? Am I going to do okay at sports? And you've got all of those things going on. But like, that doesn't really stop. And I'm telling you, if you're in that spot where you're like, I am anxious, nothing feels like it's in my control, like, good. That's good. It's not supposed to be in your control. There are something, control you can, what you can't, cling to Jesus with. Romans, oh shoot, it's going to kill me. I believe it's Romans 12. But for my sake, and I don't want to like search through my Bible again right now, I'm going to say it's somewhere in Romans 12 or 14. I forget. It's like talks about clinging to Jesus. And it's that idea of like desperation, like just holding on because he's all I got. And what God doesn't want you to do is despair. Because you know what it means if you despair? It means you have no hope. It means you have no hope. And Jesus, he has given us hope. Because hope, you hope in things that you don't see yet, right? So, screw it. We're going into the Bible. Romans 8, one of the greatest things on earth. Romans 8, it talks about our future glory. It says, "For I consider that the sufferings of this present time are not worth comparing with the glory that is to be revealed to us." So, like right now, like Paul, Christians, in that moment are suffering. Like, people are being persecuted. Like, Nero, the dude, like, Nero's a rough dude. He's persecuting Christians left and right. It says he was burning them to light his garden, like, on stakes. Like, really not great guy. He burned half of Rome down to blamed it on Christians, That's the dude. He executed Paul, probably, in AD 64. But he's like, the present sufferings are not worth comparison to what's going to be ours in the future. Like, that out there is ours. We've claimed it. We're heirs with Jesus. Like, whatever Jesus has, we have. For we know the whole creation is there. For in this hope we were saved, not hope that is seen. For hope that is seen is not hope. For who hopes for what he sees? But if we hope for what we do not see, we wait for it with patience. Likewise, the Spirit helps us in our weakness, for we do not know what to pray for as we ought, but the Spirit himself intercedes for us with groanings too deep for words. And he who searches hearts knows what is in the mind of the Spirit, because the Spirit intercedes for the saints according to the will of God. And we know that for those who love God, all things work together for good, for those who are called according to his purpose. So, Jesus promises persecution. He promises us trials. He promises us hardship. He promises us life is not going to be easy. Like, I love talking about, like, fulfillment of life in Jesus. That does not mean, like, even if your life is full, even if your life is, like, you're rich with Jesus, that does not mean you're going to get money. It does not mean you're going to get fame. That does not mean life will be easy. That means life will still be really hard, but you have something incredible to hope for. And that's what he wants us to be desperate for. And if we despair, we have abandoned hope. We've abandoned the reality that we are children of God who have a home even after we die here. Like, we have a reality in heaven. And people, like, that's why, like, some of the toughest people in the world are Christians. Like, they're just like, I'm not going to crack. I will not reject Jesus because I know what I have. And if we get a hold of that reality and own it in every situation, like, God will use that, and he will move us, and he will use us to, like, reach anyone. Imagine, like, what's the worst thing someone can do to you? Probably kill you. Doesn't matter anymore if you're following Jesus and you're secure and, like, there's a future for you and you've got hope in Jesus that he's enough, and the worst someone can do is kill you. Whatever, dude.
Yeah.
I'll tell the world about Jesus. Like, I don't care. Like, it doesn't matter anymore. Like, I'm totally bunny rabbit trailing, but still, like, that's, like, what it looks like to be desperate for Jesus, is, like, despite pain, suffering, hardships, I'm going to cling to the hope of Jesus, and I'm not going to fall into despair, because that's where Satan wants you. The enemy wants you to be in despair. Like, of course nothing's going to go your way. Of course you're not good enough. Of course you're unworthy. Of course you're a piece of crap and you're just a sinner. Like, you're never going to, God could never love you. That's, like, those words can hurt. Those words can sound true. You're not called to ministry. You're not called to serve in the church. You're not allowed. You shouldn't be doing this. You're not making an impact with anyone. This podcast, we should just call it. You know, like, those are the lies that Satan will say. That's what he's trying to do. And if he lets, again, those things that you think, the words that, like, the lies Satan's going to tell you, those thoughts will trigger feelings, and those feelings will trigger reactions. So we talked about earlier, like, your emotions will lead you somewhere. And again, it's why you don't trust your heart, which means, like, don't trust your thoughts and your heart right away. Like, go and challenge it. Have accountability. Have people in your life that you can talk to about hard things. Like, have brothers in Christ, sisters in Christ, mentors, people who you are pouring into. Like, have things set up in place so that you can stand strong during those hardships, during those lies, and make sense of it. And also, go to God. Don't just go to people. It's easy to trauma dump. It's easy to, like, here's all the crap going on in my life. It is much better for you to go to God with that first. I promise you. That is, and then search for his truth in the word. That's integral. That's, like, the most important thing in that thing. Anyways. Yeah.
That's awesome. And what I thought of when you were talking about, like, the worst thing you can do to a Christian or anything like that, like, when you look at the, like, super, super early church and the unstoppable force against all the odds, you see that power. Like, it's just, like, again, when you look into the history, it's like there's no way that should have happened, right? And that's such a, like, revealing thing to me, because that's the power that we hold in our life today, even, right? And that's such a encouraging thing. So, like, for us going through high school, or you going through ministry right now, and about to go into married life, no matter what God throws our way, we know we can handle through the power of Christ. And it's not, like Mr. Orm said it better in John 3:30. He must increase, I must decrease. Like it's not about me anymore. The story is not about me. And that's, for me, that's a comforting thing, because if it was about me, then I'm a massive screw up,
Dude, that's where we're all at, though.
Yeah.
Every one of us is like, we're just we're total failures, man. But like that's like the coolest thing. Like God's grace is enough. Like, I was talking with my kids, and like one of my buddies, he was talking with me, and I shared this with them. There's nothing you can do to fall out of the reach of God. There's nowhere you can go to be out of God's reach. There's a psalm. It's like, if I make my bed in Sheol, if I make my bed in the depths, you're there. If I ascend to the highest mountains, you're there. Like, God, like, man, when I tell you God can't leave, He will not leave you. He won't just let you like again, if I make my bed in Sheol, like in the depths, in death, like something that's going to kill me, like if I'm going to live my life in a manner where I am going to probably die as a result of my sinfulness, of my stupidity, of me just being stubborn, and I end up in a pit, right? God is there with me. Like where no one else is, God is there with me. In my isolation, where I did that all on my own, I got to the very bottom of the pit and I led myself there. God's there with me. There's nowhere you can go to outrun God. Like that's how desperately God wants you. Like when I mean why is it important to follow Jesus, dude? Like God has been fighting for His people since the beginning of time. Yeah. And like this book in my hand is a love letter to humanity. It's God. He created something good. We messed it up. We sinned. We decided not to trust God. We decided to rebel. We decided to try and go and to make our own path. Find yourself. Go and write your own story. Go and, what's good for you. That's what we decided to do. And if it wasn't Adam and Eve, you could blame them, but it would have been someone else. It would have been us. It would have been me. I would have decided to sin. Every single person would have decided to go and sin and fall short of the standard that God has. God's standard is perfection. He expects us to be perfect. That's it. That's the whole thing. Perfect. Nothing short. If you said one itty bitty lie, right to jail. You're out. You're not allowed to be with God anymore. But He fought for His people through the Old Testament. He gave them the law. He chose a family that was supposed to be like Him to the world and reclaim the world. And then they failed. And then God kept using them, and He was still faithful to them despite their ignorance, despite their arrogance, despite their idolatry, despite how hard-hearted they were. And they kept getting worse and worse and worse and worse. And then there's like, is there any hope for these people? And in that moment where you're like, God's done with His people, He sends His Son, Jesus, to the earth as a baby. That seems like a really stupid plan, God. But even the dumbest plan of God is way better than the best plan I have. Right? I forget what that is. I think it's 1 Corinthians. Like the wisdom of God. The foolishness of God is better than the wisdom of man. Like God sends His Son, Jesus, who He loves, who He's had a perfect relationship from the beginning of time, to now. Perfect relationship. Sends Jesus down. He lives a life for 33 years. He dies the most gruesome death, one of the most gruesome deaths ever recorded in history. In that moment, Jesus experiences true separation from His dad for the first time from the Father. He's never imagine everyone in the world has a broken relationship with their mother, father, a close friend. No one has a perfect relationship with anybody. But imagine you did. You're the one you have the best relationship with. And then imagine they never hurt you. They never, ever, ever did anything wrong to you. And they'll never leave you. They would never turn away from you. In that moment, when Jesus took the sins of the world on His shoulders, God left Him. His Father left Him. In that moment, Jesus felt every sin any single person on the planet would ever do, could do in the future, has done in the past. And He took that and paid the penalty because of the what is the wages of sin? It's death. He died for us so that we could live. That is the deal. So why follow Jesus? Because he paid the penalty that I couldn't pay, so that I could live a life for him. That's the story, man. Like this thing, it's not I'm following the Bible and its morals and its teachings. I'm following Jesus. I'm trying to be like him. And when I don't know how to be like him and when I screw up, he is more than enough. It says in John 6:37, it's talking about the bread of life. He says, all the Father has given to me will come to me. Anyone who comes to me, I'll never cast out. That verse has been blowing my mind. Anyone who comes to me, I will never cast out. Even a prostitute? Yeah. Pedophile? Yeah. Drug dealer? Yeah. Murderer? Yeah. Anyone who comes to me, I will never cast out. Even the person that looked at porn like yesterday? Yeah. Even the one who lied, like the 5-year-old who's lying to his mom about stealing a cookie from the cookie jar? Yeah, him too. The least sin that you could, in our scale of, the justice, the least and the greatest sinner. Anyone who comes to me, I will never, ever cast out, and nothing can separate you from the love of God. That's the story, man. And, as a sinner, as someone who is, wrecked their life, is a major screw-up, in desperate need of Jesus at all times, that's what we cling to. That's why is it important to follow Jesus? That's the reason. Because he can do literally everything I can't do, right? That's... end.
That's perfect.
Yeah, but there's clearly more to talk about with that.
Yeah. No, because we were talking about, some of my favorite stories to hear are when life is going absolutely terribly, or even hearing about religious persecution. These people are in the midst about to be killed. They're in a hole being fed maybe once every 2 days, and but they have a tiny bit of scripture in that they're praying to God, and then they get out of that hole. They get out of that suffering. They get out of that intense place where they're isolated, and the only person they have is Jesus, is God, right? And they get out of that, and when they come back to the world, when they come out of that suffering, they wish that they were back there, because it was the closest they would have ever been to God. And that is the most mind-blowing thing. You really want to go back to starving and being on death row? You really want to go back there? That's mind-blowing to me. You really want to go back there? Yes, because God's there. The same way in the fire, you know what I mean? And those are the mind-blowing stories to me, and the most powerful stories. And that's where who is Jesus? Why should you follow him? That's why. Because like we've said this whole time, that no matter what is going on in life, he's a constant, and he will be there for you when no one else is.
Yeah. I think, famous athlete verses, Philippians 4:13, I can lift this weight because God. And I'm like, oh man. It's I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me. They literally miss verse 12 a lot. And 11. So it says, not that I am speaking of being in need, for I have learned in whatever situation I am to be content. I know how to be brought low, and I know how to abound. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of facing plenty and hunger, abundance and need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me. Paul's not talking about winning any games. He's not talking about anything where it's man did it. I did this thing, look at me. Paul's not talking about how great he's got it. He's saying, no, Jesus has shown me how to be content in him, knowing that he is enough, clinging to him in desperation. I will not despair, because if I have need, he will give it to me. He's the bread of life. Anyone who's thirsty, come to me. Anyone who's hungry, come to me. That's Jesus is enough even when you don't have enough. And that's and doesn't always mean he's going to give you I need $50. Well, here you go, Sonny. It's not like that. Maybe I'm not going to say God can't do something. But it's like knowing that he genuinely does care, and all you have to do is like let him know what's going on, having that active relationship with Jesus where it's not like just this thing you do on the side. It's like the thing that defines your life. That's the key to knowing how to live the good life and having Jesus, right? Yeah.
The active relationship is such an important part, because I know before, like, I feel like a lot of believers, you can say, like, okay, I knew about Jesus for a while, but then this is the time when I started actually following him and having an active relationship with him. And that's the part to me that clicked a while ago. And it's honestly the hardest part, but it is the most rewarding part too. And I think that's a big thing for me.
A big thing for me is just he is the only person who can forgive you for your sins. The only one. You can't go to your friend and be like, hey, can you forgive me for this? That's no. Like we're sinning constantly. I think a thing that people don't realize too is even when you think of something, that is also a sin.
Dude. Do you know, like, oh my gosh, and even if you think about like things, you're dwelling on things you've done in the past, you're like, why am I going back there? Like, this thing, your brain is so powerful, man. Like, it can take you literally anywhere you want it to go. And it can twist things like you cannot believe.
Cool.
Dude, thoughts, man. And then, like, in your heart, like, your mind and heart are literally at, like, Paul says, like, your flesh and spirit are at war with each other.
Yeah.
That's, like, it's in those moments of where you're in that tension, right? Where you're like, my body wants to break and give in to what I really want to do, but the spirit within me is like, you shouldn't do that, bub. Like, you can't, River, don't do that, man. And I'm like, what the heck? And like, you like that that's like, it messes with you. It's so conflicting. But it's like, it all starts up here, man. It's like those thoughts, and those can lead you into doing crazier things.
Exactly.
Dude, yeah. And that also can be like a song you listen to, right? Like an explicit song that like demeans women, right? We have a lot of those these days. And I'm like, wow, yeah. I'm like, what? And like, how did my brain just like why did I, like, I'm thinking about this, and now it's like a thing I'm thinking about later on in the day. And I'm like, why? And like, that doesn't, like, that's not what I actually want. But it's like, it's like the things you put into your brain, the content you consume, dude, what you put in, you get out. It's that, man. Dude, for sure. I think another thing on this whole concept of like what Jesus is kind of like and why it's important to follow him is like the standard is so high. Like, you know, like back in the Old Testament, they had like the priests, that whole system. You know, Joshua, he's the brother that stormed, he walked around for 7 days. It was called Jericho. Boom, and the walls came tumbling down. All right, so like this story of Joshua is like Moses is dead. Joshua's in charge of Israel now. God's like, here's what you're going to do. Game plan. We're going to go take Jericho. We're going to walk all the way around the building, the city, for 7 days. Once a day. The seventh day, we'll do it 7 times. We'll blow our trumpets. Walls come down. Easy. That's like just the start. But that's what he's famous for. Joshua did it, and God followed through on his promise and took the wall down. But like Joshua, he's the high priest. He's the dude that's supposed to have everything together. He's supposed to be the guy that like follows God real good, doesn't really sin. But in Zechariah 3, there's this prophecy, right? I love the prophets. They're more and more interesting to me now. They used to be a real snooze fest for me, but now I kind of enjoy them. It's, man, Proverbs. You know what? I can probably just freeball it. There it is. Never mind. I don't need to freeball it. I got it. So it says, then he showed me Joshua the high priest standing before the angel of the Lord, and Satan standing at the right hand to accuse him. And the Lord said to Satan, "The Lord rebuke you, O Satan. The Lord who has chosen Jerusalem rebuke you. Is not this a brand plucked from the fire?" So I was like, isn't this a branch that I pulled out of the fire? It was burning. It was on fire. It was dying. Like that's us in sin. Is like our lives are on fire and we're burning and we're gonna die. Like that's like symbolizing death and like a destruction. Now Joshua was standing before the angel, clothed with filthy garments. And the angel said to those who were standing before him, "Remove the filthy garments from him." And to him he said, "Behold, I have taken your iniquity from you, and I will clothe you with pure vestments." It means clean clothes. And I said, "Let them put a clean turban on his head." So they put a clean turban on his head and clothed him with garments. And the angel of the Lord was standing by. And the angel of the Lord solemnly assured Joshua, "Thus says the Lord of hosts, if you will walk in my ways and keep my charge, then you shall rule my house and have charge of my courts, and I will give you the right of access among those who are standing here. Hear now, O Joshua, the high priest, you and your friends who sit before you, for there are men who are assigned. Behold, I will bring my servant the branch," Jesus. For behold, on the stone that I have set before Joshua, on a single stone with 7 eyes, I will engrave its inscription, declares the Lord of hosts. I will remove the iniquity of this land in a single day. Day when Jesus dies. In that day, declares the Lord of hosts, every one of you will invite his neighbor to come under his vine, under his fig tree. And that's like, I love this, because he's saying, there's a day coming. You guys, you can have the right to like rule these people here. You'll be in charge of these people here. Like, but I'm going to send someone who can do something you can't do so that I can clean this land, clean your people. Like, it's not like Jesus' death. It was like not just like he forgives Braden and Nick. It was like, no, like this is like transforming the world. Like, and again, it's not in the way that we see it, because we're like, well, pollution's only gotten worse, you know? It's like, no, like there is going to be a new heaven and a new earth and a right relationship with God, and it extends to literally every aspect of creation, like a garden city where it's like, this is the Garden of Eden, but instead of there just being 2 people, like in the beginning, it's going to be like everyone who's decided to put their faith and their trust in Jesus. It's crazy. And I just love that image, because like someone who was supposed to be like the goat who's got it together was not the goat and was sinner just like me. Super cool stuff.
So, River, if I were to ask you, for the person that has now listened to this, or the person that is considering Jesus, where should they start? And what advice do you give that to them if they're starting their faith journey, have made that decision?
Right. If you are on the edge with Jesus and you're not sure yet, you need to know who he really is. And we started off today, and I read it. It's Matthew 11:20 through 30. Jesus, he opens the invite for anyone to come to him who is weary, heavy laden. If you're tired, if what you are doing is not working, if the effort you're putting into your life is not giving you the good life, if the things you are doing are failing you, like what you want to do, like if the trajectory of your life is not going where you want it to go, you need to go to Jesus. And you need to lay your life down and be like, this is not working. I've been trying and it's not working. The thing that I thought was going to be enough wasn't enough. And again, you're allowed to struggle with this even after you give it up to Jesus. Like, you're allowed to struggle with your life and what it means to follow Jesus. But you need to start knowing that Jesus asks us to lay ourselves down, to surrender to him, take his yoke upon us. A yoke is an old way of saying teaching. So it's like, take my teaching. Like, there's this image of like 2 cows walking, right? And they have like a yoke that I read A Little House on the Prairie when I was growing up. And I saw this image, and it's like a wooden yoke, and one cow would be leading the other cow, and the one following behind it would be kind of pulled along by the yoke of the other cow. And he's like, take my yoke upon you, for it is light. My burden is light, because I'm here to help you. Like, Jesus is actually trying to help you and make your life better. And it's going to be painful. It's not going to be easy, and it's not going to be this like tear off the Band-Aid kind of thing. It's going to be like, and it's all better, like it's not going to be this like fix all my problems and booyah, go. And like, fix. It's like a slow process that will take literally your entire life of you trying to figure out what it means to follow Jesus more and more. And it starts with knowing exactly who he is. It's going to him when he offers you. He's like, come to me and take this from me, the yoke. Give me your old ways. Get rid of the old stuff. Take this new stuff. And then he says, this is who he is. He's gentle. Who is he? He's gentle and humble in heart. It means he's compassionate. I'm willing to work with you. I know how hard this is. I'm not going to just smack you around like, get your crap together, you idiot. Like, Jesus is not about that. He's not about, I'm not going to, like, Jesus isn't this soft guy who's going to roll over at sin. He hates sin. He does. But start with knowing that, Matthew 11:20-30. And if I were you, I'd really recommend just going through the Gospels. Read through Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John. Probably start in John. It says a lot about who he is. And then go in and read about him through that lens. He's gentle and humble in heart. I really think you figuring this out on your own, like you looking at Jesus, looking at your life, seeing how he lived, and realizing he was doing it right and I was doing it wrong, is like what's ultimately gonna like change you. It's like his enoughness is more than my lack always.
Yeah.
And even if I feel like I have enough, Jesus is more than enough to like take away, like, because you're gonna run out of your stuff quick, but Jesus doesn't run out. He's always going to be there to help you move along. So yeah, start there. That's what I would recommend. Also read John 15. And anything by those authors and podcasts I listed before. Yeah, like just hunt. That's if you want my advice, like you have more access than anyone ever before on the planet. Like if you have a phone in your hand or a laptop, you have more access than literally anyone on the planet. Hunt for the answers. Ask questions to people you trust. But I would ultimately start with the Bible though. And now I'm done.
Perfect. All right. You got any final things or?
No, I don't think I do.
All right, sweet. Well, River, you want to give us one big clap to finish?
And